Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Halestorm called Vicious. So the last time I reviewed Halestorm, it didn't exactly go very well. Actually, that's probably putting it mildly, given that this is a band that I've repeatedly tried to get into, and yet have felt consistently let down time and time again, be it by underwhelming writing, unexceptional melodies, or inconsistent production, the last of which utterly crippled any enjoyment I got out of their third album, Into the Wild Life, produced by Jay Joyce seemingly before he hit his stride later in 2015 with Eric Church. And from there, I will freely admit Halestorm has not been on my radar whatsoever. I just haven't heard about them and I haven't really cared. And with their new album Vicious, well, it got added to my schedule, and they had got rid of Jay Joyce, but they replaced him with Nick Raskulinecz, who you might know better for producing the comeback albums for Alice in Chains in the late 2000s, early 2010s, or chunks of the more mainstream accessible and less good Mastodon albums, and that last underwhelming Rise Against album that was only good and should have been great, and the worst Ghost album. So, alright, none of that's a good sign, and I will freely admit I was skeptical when I saw Halestorm professing that this was going to be the album where we truly see all sides of the band, and this is going to be the one that was going to really win us over. And I hate to be that guy, but I've heard this press junket run at least twice before, and while it seems like a fair number of critics were won over with this record, I will freely admit I had very low expectations. So fine, what do we get out of Vicious? Well, this is the sort of review that if I did not have some history with Halestorm and wanted to clear the air, it would be perfect for the trailing edge, because there's very little new for me to say about Vicious. Is it good? Yeah, sure, it's good. It's perfectly serviceable, meat and potatoes hard rock that would be utterly forgettable across the board if it wasn't for Lzzy Hale fronting the group. In other words, it's a Halestorm album, and I dare say it's one of the better ones, maybe even one of their best, but it's not really all that distinct or innovative or interesting within the genre, the sort of project that's tailor-made for agreeable mainstream rock radio, and likely only getting as much praise as it is because sheer competence in mainstream hard rock is becoming increasingly scarce, especially on the production side. But fine, let's start with the production, shall we? And folks, if you were alienated by Jay Joyce's miscalculations behind the boards 3 years ago, Nick Raskulinecz should lay all your fears to rest, because production, not an issue on this album really at all. It doesn't really elevate or refine the sound of the album or push their tones towards a heaviness or crunch that sounds distinctive, but it also doesn't misunderstand Halestorm's appeal like Jay Joyce did, which is Lzzy Hale and all of her huge raw presence behind the microphone. And it doesn't embrace any of the gaudy keyboard work or electronic effects that have overran so much of modern rock radio like the plague. Hell, the most we see of anything close to that comes on Buzz with the Talkbox, and that actually fits against the spiky grind of the groove on one of the better songs there. And yeah, you occasionally get a filter that's tacked onto a bridge for added effect on the vocals like on Conflicted or Painkiller or White Dress, but only in the last case it gets irksome because of the oscillating vocal melody more than the filter there. So yeah, if the production isn't an issue this time, we do need to take a look at the compositions, and where I'm once again kind of underwhelmed by the grooves and the melodies that Halestorm is bringing to the table. Not the vocal melody. With or without overdubs, Lzzy Hale is a raw cyclone of explosive force, and while I do think Heart of Novocaine was a little bit oversold for an acoustic song, she proves to tracks like The Closer, The Silence that she can show real subtlety when she wants to. My issue comes in the lead guitar melodies that you would expect to counterbalance her on the hooks, but usually we're stuck with the similar chugging rhythms that you'd find throughout the rest of the song, and that doesn't really make the songs feel as dynamic as they really should. Even if the rhythm guitar changes up, they're just not really as catchy. Take the pre-chorus build-up of the scuzzier tones on Buzz, that's a good example of the sound working, or the heavier melodic lead on Killing Ourselves to Live, probably my favorite cut on the album, especially when the bells and the acoustic touches on the bridge, they're flipped into a pretty killer, damn near thrash metal breakdown. Hell, the closer this album steps towards filthier alternative metal or new metal or thrash, frankly the better it becomes. Although I will also freely admit the new metal and industrial touches that slip onto the title track, White Dress and Skulls, they don't always connect quite as as well as they should. A little tough to say why. Maybe it's the low-end groove and percussion doesn't quite have the roiling punch it really needs to really click for me. Of course, the other side to all this is the songwriting. And at this point, 4 albums in, it's getting a little disconcerting that we're not seeing more details or nuance or subtext in the writing to give it more weight or flavor. You get Halestorm's brand of Survivor's empowerment anthem that we've heard tons before, the cuts that are trying to unsettle the audience but are way too reliant on Lizzie Hale's performance instead of the writing to add some actual teeth here. Uncomfortable is the biggest example of that. And then you get the sex songs that are lustful, they're appealing, but they feel a little bit less racy than they clearly think that they are. I'm not complaining about it, per se, but if this is all it takes to really agitate modern rock radio audience, I can't help but feel a little underwhelmed, especially in comparison to the writing in nearly any other genre of music right now. But conventional subject matter aside, that could be redeemed by interesting poetry. And yet, like on other previous albums, Halestorm just don't have much here that really sticks with me. How often is this band going to go to the love as drug addiction metaphor? Because they do it at least 3 times on this album. And wait a minute, when you have Skulls actively calling out the numbing effect of the modern world and you don't want to feel empty-headed on that song, it's one of the more elaborated metaphors, but then you got songs later in the track listing like Conflicted that openly play into her intoxicating confusion, framing it as more of a good thing with lines like "come over here and make up my mind." I'm sorry, kind of mixed signals there. And look, while I didn't mind the tilt into the Survivor sadism of the title track, I will say it's a bit jarring going from that to The Silence, a grounded acoustic ballad celebrating memories and a lingering, everlasting connection with somebody. Just a little bit of tonal whiplash, even despite the closing track being an album highlight. I kind of wish there was more detail like that song on the rest of the record. But cuts like that, again, they are the exception, as is the writing is heavy on cliches and territory that Halestorm has trod many times before across the board. And to be fair, it's rarely ever bad. If you're looking for this sort of hard rock, you could do a lot worse than Halestorm, believe me, I've heard a lot of it. But outside of Lizzie Hale's performance, which is, again, it's very raw, it's very impassioned, there's very little that's distinctive or memorable about this album. For me, it's a 6 out of 10, recommended for the fans, as it's definitely better than Into the Wild Life just on a production basis. But beyond that, maybe a listen, but I can't really promise you'll remember it in the long term. Just saying. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Not a lot to say about this one, but hey, for Halestorm fans, you want to buy it, links down there below. And I got the poll up there for y'all. Tell me how wrong I am. I'm freely expecting it. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process or help support this channel, link to my Patreon is right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote for my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even top 10 lists to that schedule. More details right over there. You want to see a schedule to my Instagram, link down there below. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.